What's up, Pathfinder players? TPG here, and today I've got another teamwork build video for you guys. Today we will be building the Shadow Assassin Witch. Let's get into it. The strategy for this build is to use shadow-like spells to take away our enemy's sight, then enable our allies to take advantage of their blindness. To that effect, the ancestry for this build is going to be the Fetchling. The Fetchling has a lot of feats that are going to help us with our darkness strategy. But for our heritage, we're going to go with the Changeling heritage. This is going to give us access to another feat that's going to help us with our shadow-based strategy. For our ancestry feats, the first one we want to take is Shadow Blending. A lot of the time when we're in darkness, we're not going to be hidden, we're going to be concealed. This feat is simply going to make us harder to hit in that situation. We're a witch, so we're not going to have as many hit points as a rogue. And sometimes we're not going to be able to have our darkness spell up. But if we have dim light or darkness around, then this is going to make us harder to hit. We also want to take the Slink feat. This is going to allow us to stealth between darknesses rather easily, if we need to. For 9th, we want to take Extinguish Light. We don't want any light around, so this is going to help us get rid of that. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get rid of more than one light source. However, we'll be pretty good as long as we can get dim light, or more. We also want to take Mistchild from our Changeling heritage. This will pair extremely well with our Shadow Blending feat. Now if we're hidden or concealed and we use our Shadow Blending reaction, they have to roll an 8 if we're concealed, or a 14 if we're hidden. For our last feat, we want to take Crone's Cruelty. This is going to give us Warp Mind as an innate spell once a day. This will allow us to confuse one target in our darkness. That means if none of our allies are in the darkness, the enemy has to attack either themselves or one of their buddies in the darkness, assuming they don't crit succeed. For our Witch's Patron, we're going to go with the Curse Patron. This will give us the Occult spell list, which is the best teamwork spell list in the game, and it will give us access to the Evil Eye Hex cantrip. This will allow us to frighten our enemies. If they fail their save against this Hex cantrip, it's at least -1 to everything as long as we sustain the spell. And because we'll be able to see into complete darkness, we can keep it up even when enemies are in our darkness spells. It'll also give us the Ray of Enfeeblement spell. This will debuff the damage of big enemies, which we want to avoid. But if we do get into melee combat with one of those types of enemies, they'll do less damage. Before I get into the class feats, I do want to mention that this build does use the free archetype variant rule. So if your GM doesn't allow that, then sorry, this build will not work for you. Believe it or not, at 2nd level we are starting with an archetype. More specifically, the Alchemist archetype. This will give us access to Alchemist bombs, but more importantly, poisons and mutagens. The poisons will help us do more damage with our non-spell attacks, and mutagens will help us shore up our weak defenses. We can also give these items to our party members. This will also give us access to Elixirs of Life, so we can heal ourselves without wasting the Soothe spell. At 4th level, we will be taking Conceal Spell. We're going to be pretty good at stealth and deception for this build, so this will allow us to cast our darkness without anybody knowing about it. Until it's too late, of course. 6th level is when this build really starts being a teamwork build. At 6th level, we want to take Expert Alchemy. Now we can start making dark vision elixirs and give them to our allies so that those that don't have dark vision can have it. That way they can see through the darkness as well. This will also give us access to more powerful poisons and mutagens. Our 8th level feat for this build will be Enhanced Familiar. For this build, we want our familiar to be a Shadow Familiar. For that, we need 7 familiar abilities. But we're not going to get that without this feat. There are plenty of things that a Shadow Familiar can do that others cannot. So that's why we're taking this feat. At 10th level, we'll be taking Improved Familiar. With this feat, we can get our Shadow Familiar right now instead of having to wait until 12th level or higher. That's pretty much the only reason we're taking this feat. At 12th level, we'll be taking Master Alchemy. Once we go up a level, we'll be able to make greater dark vision elixirs. This means that our allies will always have dark vision, so they can always take advantage of our darkness spells. Plus, again, more powerful poisons and mutagens. At 14th level, we'll be taking Hex Focus. This build is going to have a lot of focus spells, so we need to be able to get back our focus spells as quickly as possible. So getting 2 back whenever we refocus is going to be good. The next feat for this build is Major Lesson, and we'll be taking the Lesson of Shadow. This will give us the Malicious Shadow, Hex, and the Chilling Darkness spell. Malicious Shadow will let us distract enemies with their own shadow, and Chilling Darkness will allow us to do damage and gives us another way to get rid of light, besides just our ancestry feats. For 18th level, we'll be taking Hex Wellspring. We're taking this for the exact same reason we took Hex Focus, getting our focus points back quickly. And for our last feat at 20th level, we'll be taking Major Lesson again. But this time we'll be taking the Lesson of Death. I mean, we're building an assassin here. We gotta have death stuff, right? This will give us the Curse of Death Hex and the Raise Dead spell. Curse of Death will allow us to do damage, fatigue the enemy, and possibly kill them. Raise Dead will allow us to bring back our allies if they're ever killed. Fatigued is one of those conditions that nobody ever thinks about, but is good. That's a -1 to their AC and all their saving throws. It's a condition that can apply to just about anyone, just like Frightened and Sickened. For our first free archetype feat, we're going to be taking the Assassin dedication. After all, we are building an assassin here, so it makes sense, right? This will give us the Mark for Death activity, which will help us with our more martial attacks. Fourth, we'll be taking Surprise Attack. If we use Deception or Stealth as our initiative, then enemies that haven't acted yet are flat-footed against us. Again, that's going to help us when we don't really want to cast our spells. At 6th, we have Poison Weapon. This will allow us to poison our weapons with our poisons from our Alchemist dedication for 1 action. At 8th level, we'll take our second dedication, the Shadow Dancer dedication. This will give us greater dark vision, which is going to be important later. It's going to give us a bonus on stealth when we're in dim light or darkness. Next at 10th, we're going to take Shadow Sneak Attack. This is just going to give us some sneak attack damage so we can take advantage of our bow. At 12th, we'll be taking Uncanny Dodge. We don't want anyone using our own darkness to sneak up on us, so there you go. Then at 14th level, we'll be taking our last dedication, the Shadowcaster dedication. This is going to give us the Cloak of Shadows domain spell, which we cast using focus points. Cloak of Shadow will allow us to give our allies some darkness to help them sneak around. We, as the Shadowcaster, have plenty of ways already to sneak around, but our allies might not, so this is the way to get them that. At 16th level, we'll be taking the feat that gives us our ace in the hole, Unending Emptiness. This will give us the Dark Light domain spell. Dark Light is the ultimate darkness spell. Light doesn't enter or leave the area. Creatures inside cannot see outside. Even creatures with dark vision, but not greater dark vision, can barely see through the darkness. And any creatures that are seen through the darkness are concealed to them. Every round a creature is in the field, it takes 2d6 bludgeoning damage and 2d6 negative damage with a basic fortitude save. When you cast this spell, you can choose up to 4 allies in the area to spare from its effects. Until the spell ends, those allies are immune to the damage from the Dark Light spell and can see through the Dark Light, but not other darkness, as though they had greater dark vision. You don't need to target yourself because you have greater dark vision. Like I said, this is our ace in the hole. We want to use this spell when we're having trouble with an enemy. Alright, at 18th we want to take Disciple of Shade. This is going to give us yet another focus spell called Inscrutable Mask. The mask is going to give us a status bonus to deception checks to lie or feint, intimidation checks to demoralize, and stealth checks to hide in areas of dim light or darkness. And it lasts for 10 minutes. This is just another way for us to be good in the shadows. And our last feat for our free archetype is going to be Assassinate. This is just another death effect thing, and we can use our spell DC, which is legendary by now, so yay. For our skill feats, we want to focus on stealth and deception. We could also take some performance feats since we're going to have to be an expert in performance to take our Shadow Dancer dedication. Some good ones we might take include Confabulator, so we can create an diversion more often, Lengthy Diversion so that our diversions last longer, Swift Sneak so we can sneak at full speed, and Legendary Sneak so we can sneak even if we don't have cover or concealment. For general feats, we don't want our enemies to be able to use our darkness to sneak up on us, so we'll be taking CANNY, ACUMEN, Perception. We'll also be taking Fleet in order to increase our speed, Toughness and Die Hard to keep us up, and for our last general feat, we'll be taking Incredible Initiative. If we can go first in combat, then our enemies might not be able to even attack the party. Of course, it depends on the situation as well, but that's beside the point. We definitely want to go first in this build, and Incredible Initiative is going to help us with that. Alright, now let's move on to some good spells you can take. There's the standard occult teamwork spells like Fear and Hideous Laughter, but also, Web of Eyes is a must-take for this build. Once we can cast 3rd level spells, we need to take this spell. This spell will allow us to share our dark vision, and later our greater dark vision, with our allies. Yes, we're going to have to spend an action to keep up our darkness, and we're going to have to spend an action to share our vision with our allies. But that's why this build has other things to do besides magic. Also, Mage Armor is going to help us with our defense at low levels, and Shadow Siphon is going to help us with other spellcasters. We're also obviously going to need our Darkness spell. That's our bread and butter. Overall, we just need to take as many Darkness-based spells as we can, and then fill out the rest with good teamwork occult spells. And that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Pathfinder 2nd Edition teamwork content. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter. But if you really want to support me and get a cool character sheet for this build at the same time, you can pledge to me on Patreon at Team Leader or higher. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, teamwork is vital.